Okay, here we go again. Another DBQ. It's still the beginning of the year, and many of you have already started to feel the frustration of what it takes to write an AP European DBQ. So this is going to try and be as brief as possible because ultimately you're the one who has to figure it out. But remember that the whole purpose of the AP Euro Dbq is for you to act as the historian. And that means you need to take examples of history, the various documents that they've given you, plus try, although it's not required, try to input your background knowledge of the time period and try to create some kind of response to the DBQ question that makes sense and uses the documents properly. All right, so let's get started. The AP Euro Dbq essay gives you pretty much a basic essay question and then a historical background. Remember that the historical background is not for you to use verbatim. Use the information it gives you to create your own historical background directly related to the event, the time period that they're talking about. So here it goes. Analyze the concerns and goals of participants in the Pilgrimage of Grace and of those who oppose the movement. You don't have to know what the Pilgrimage of Grace is. The historical background will give you a little detail. It used to be that the AP European DBQ, most people would have had no idea what the topic was, just they could relate it to the time period involved. We're in the middle of the Reformation right now in class. You've already looked at a DBQ on peasant uprisings, so you have a little bit of background. This is specifically about something called the Pilgrimage of Grace in England. All right. You have to first identify what you're looking for as you go through the documents. The concerns and goals of the participants, the concerns and goals of those who oppose the movement. You could be looking for specifically 3 different concerns and goals of 3 different groups, or 3 different concerns and goals that mix different groups. You don't know until you read the documents. But as you read the documents, that's what you should be keeping in mind. Okay, basic rules just to begin as you read. You have to create 3 groups or 3 ways to answer the question. That means 3 body paragraphs. It means 3 basic ideas. In this case, 3 concerns and goals of the participants and the opposition. In order to be a usable group to answer the question, you need a minimum of 3 documents for each group. If you're outlining your documents, trying to figure out, what ideas and what documents go where, and you only have 2 documents to support a group, I'm telling you right now, that's not strong enough to be a group. You're going to have to come up with something else. As you read through the documents, and I always give you the documents a day or more ahead of time so that you can go home and spend time actually dissecting them, you should be on your document packet writing notes to yourself next to the documents. Brief, not crazy, but brief. You should be writing down your ideas of what the topic would be. You should be underlining keywords. You should probably in the margin write down if this particular document is going to be a really good example of point of view for yourself. You're looking for 3, magic number 3. 3, in this case, concerns and goals of the participants and the opposition to the Pilgrim of Grace. And as you read each document in your mind and on paper, you should be writing down what you think the group would be for that particular document. And remember, I don't care what anybody says, you are using all the documents in your essay response. If you have to leave one out, that's acceptable. But generally speaking, you are going to use all the documents. It makes a much stronger essay. I am not going to dissect all of these for you, but I am going to point out a few things about some. Remember that we talk about attribution in these documents. Attribution here is the source. It is who wrote it, when did they write it, what is it called, what type of thing is it? This is the Oath of Honorable Men taken by the marchers at York in October 1536. You want to pay special attention to dates because a lot of times you can use documents together or against each other depending on the date. So what does this oath say? You shall not enter into our pilgrimage of grace for worldly gain. Do so only for your love of God, for the Holy Catholic Church militant, for the preservation of the king and his heirs, for the purification of the nobility, and to expel all evil counselors. Take before you the cross of Christ, and in your hearts his faith. What are you supposed to ask yourself? You're supposed to ask yourself, what goal or concern is this showing me of the marchers, of the protesters? This is obviously not the opposition. These are the actual participants in the Pilgrim of Grace. So what do they want? Write down next to your document what you think they want. And then you're going to try and look for other documents that are like-minded that you could turn into a group. Okay, same month, I believe, unless I go back, but in this case, this is another Marcher's Proclamation. We're looking at the attribution. In your essay, you're using all this source material in your paragraph. Marcher's Proclamation, delivered at several gatherings in northern England, October 1536. Because the rulers of this country do not defend us from being robbed by thieves and Scots, we have to rely on charity, faith, poverty, and pity. We must be ready to help one another when thieves or Scots would rob or invade us either by night or day. Does this sound the same as document number 1? Are the concerns and goals of these participants the same? The first one to me sounded a lot more religious than this one, which sounds a lot more focused on security. Think about it. Now, every year when we use this DBQ to train on, students look at this document and have no idea what's going on. So, you look at the attribution. It's the recreation of a banner carried by peasant marchers at Horncastle depicting the wounds of Christ. A communion chalice, a plow, and a cattle horn, October 1536. Well, my first question to you is, why are there just pictures on this banner and not words? Number 2, even if you aren't Christian, I think you know that Jesus Christ was crucified and nails were put in his hands and feet when he was nailed to the cross. And obviously, according to the picture you see here, there are the nail marks in Jesus's hands and feet. The chalice, which could be used to drink the wine at Mass, and then these two symbols down here, a plow and a cattle horn. I wonder who are represented by those images. Think about it. Think about why it's a picture. Think about who it's carried by, and make a connection. Yay! Okay. Again, attribution. Marcher's Ballad composed by Catholic monks from an abbey near Lancaster, December 1536. Okay, what are the Catholic monks going to be singing about or giving the marchers something to sing about? I'm looking for the goals and concerns of the participants. Great God's fame does the church proclaim, now to be lame and held in bonds, robbed, spoiled, and shorn of cattle and corn, houses and lands. You should be asking yourself, what has happened to the church as a result of what's been going on in England? And by now you should have already been asking yourself, of course it was in the historical context, what has been happening in England as a result of the Reformation. Okay. Attribution. Selected articles from a petition presented to the members of the King's Council, written by Robert Aske, a gentleman at Pontefract Castle, December 1536. We humbly beseech our most sovereign King to have the heresies of Luther, Wycliffe, Huss, and Tyndale annulled and destroyed, to have the supreme head of the Church be the Pope in Rome as before, to have the monasteries, houses, lands, and goods restored to them, to have the heretics consigned to punishment by fire, To have Thomas Cromwell, the Lord Chancellor, punished as a subverter of the good laws of his realm. To restore tenant rights by an act of Parliament. To repeal statutes against handguns and crossbows. To pull down all recent enclosures. To have Parliament convene in York or some other nearby places in the past. To repeal the statute for treason for the spoken word alone. Now, the first thing you should say to yourself is, my goodness, there is a ton of different things mentioned in this document. Now, is this gentleman speaking for the government, or is he speaking for the marchers? What is the concern or goal? In this case, I think we're talking about the marchers? Question mark. One of the things you should look at in a document is what is the tone? All right, and in this case, who is it written to? It's written to the King's Council. All right, and he says, we humbly beseech our most sovereign king, being very deferential, being very respectful. Okay, what kinds of things is he pointing out? Well, there's a lot, but in this case, if you go down to the middle, to have Thomas Cromwell, the Lord Chancellor, punished as a subverter of the good laws of this realm. In many cases, if you were going to question the king, you don't want to question the king, directly. You want to question the advisors, because it's much easier to question the king if you're questioning his advisors and not the king himself. So it doesn't look like you are as much of a threat as if you said to the king, you don't know what you're talking about and you're hurting your people, blah, 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 blah. All right, in this case, it's Thomas Cromwell. He is the problem. If you get rid of him, things will be okay. All right? Again, you start to look at your ideas for the topics that will answer the question. In this case, this document probably could be used in one or more topics, but you don't necessarily want to use it multiple times because you won't actually have as much time to do that. Okay, again, attribution. And your radar should go up every time you have an anonymous document. In this case, this anonymous pamphlet is attributed to Sir Thomas Tempest, a former member of Parliament for Newcastle, December 1536. Things your radar should be popping up because, number one, it's anonymous. You should be asking yourself, well, why would a Sir Thomas Tempest be writing an anonymous pamphlet? Why couldn't he just write it under his own name? And the other thing that you should pay special attention is that he's a former member of Parliament. Number one, why is he former? Number two, I bet you as a member of Parliament, he knows a lot of inside information about how Parliament works. So these are the things that should, rise up in your mind as you're trying to figure out what this document means. So let's look at it real quick. The king should grant our petition against the traitor Thomas Cromwell and his adherents, or at least exile them from the realm. The current Parliament has no authority or virtue. It is little more than a council of the king's appointees. Counties and towns ought to elect knights and burgesses who would speak on their behalf. Instead, we have a Parliament where men may not speak of the king's vices, but only say what Cromwell says is right. Again, think about this. It doesn't appear that religion is the major focus of this one. This one has to do with, again, looking at the authority of the king, the authority of Parliament, and who actually is making the decisions. Can you connect this to other documents that we've read so far? Richard Morrison, a writer hired by Thomas Cromwell, A Remedy for Sedition, a pamphlet published by the royal printer, December 1536. Again, let's pay attention to the attribution. Number one, this guy was hired by Thomas Cromwell, who's in the government. He's talking about a remedy for sedition. The first thing you should think of is, what does sedition mean? Is sedition people going against the government? Perhaps. All right, it's a pamphlet. And who is it published by? The royal printer. Is there definite purpose written here? That the government is putting out this pamphlet? Yes. So you have to look at, again, when you're figuring out point of view and what any of this stuff is going to do for you, you have to really think about who is it by, what was their purpose, and of course the whole purpose of this DBQ is what were the goals and concerns of the members of the Pilgrimage of Grace and the opposers of it. And these people are obviously opposers of the Pilgrimage of Grace. When every man rules, who shall obey? Those that are of the worser sort must be content that the wiser rule and govern them. An order must be had and a way found so that the better rule the rest. This arrangement is not only expedient, but also most necessary in a commonwealth. Think of class here. Think of opinion of class. Think of who is literate, who is educated, who is not. All of those aspects that you should know about 16th century England should come into your analysis. You're not just kind of rewording a document and spitting it back. You have to interpret. All right, attribution, attribution, attribution. Nicholas Lecce, Catholic parish priest, testimony given while imprisoned in the Tower of London. So he's a Catholic priest. He's been imprisoned. Why would a Catholic priest be in prison? It must have something to do with the fact that Henry VIII has divorced himself from the Catholic Church. During the whole insurrection, not one gentleman tried to warn the commoners of Lincoln that it was treason. The gentlemen could have stopped the rebellion then, but did not, never believing their actions to be offensive to the king. In fact, they had waged the rebellion against the Privy Council in the name of the king. This somewhat connects back to another document that I talked about in the fact that the people keep their loyalty to the king, but they blame the issues on the advisors to the king. Part of that is self-preservation, and part of that, among some people, is the belief that the king, of course, wants to rule for the best of the people. Okay? Think about it as you analyze your documents. All right, again, attribution, attribution, attribution. This is Henry VIII, the King of England, in a pardon granted to marchers in London, December 1536. Before you even read the document, you should be asking yourself, why would a king pardon people in the Pilgrimage of Grace? Okay? Let it be confessed that you, the king's subjects and commoners, have recently committed rebellion that might have ruined your country. You have given comfort to your enemies, the Scots, to the high displeasure of God, who commands you to obey your sovereign in all things. Nevertheless, the royal majesty, duly informed that your offenses proceeded from ignorance and false tales, is inclined to extend his most gracious pity and mercy towards you, and to grant to you his free pardon, provided that you heartily repent your offenses and make humble submission to his highness. Ask yourself, why is Henry pardoning the marchers? Is it because he's a great guy, or is there another intention here? And again, you're trying to find goals and concerns of the marchers and of the opposers. Obviously, the government is the major opposer of this, and you should ask yourself, why does Henry pardon these people? These people who have, basically by going against their king, committed treason, which is usually punishable by death. Okay. Yes, there is even attribution for charts. Statistics collected from court records, letters and papers of Henry VIII. These are the results of the first treason trials of participants in the Pilgrimage of Grace from January to March 1537. And just take a look. All right. Gentlemen, 21 tried, only 14 convicted. Clergy, 25 tried, 20 convicted. Commoners, 177 tried, 110 convicted. Do the numbers tell us anything? The percentage convicted, the difference between the gentlemen, the clergy, and the commoners. Is there anything there that you can make use of, other than just reporting who was accused and who was convicted? Is it any significance that 80% of the clergy accused were convicted, as opposed to only 62% of the commoners? Something to think about. Now, there should be alarms going off because I think you've seen a document from Robert Ask before, and that means you should go back and look for the other Robert Ask document and see if there's any way you can play that one against this one. But here we are, Robert Ask, gentleman, Lincoln, testimony given shortly before his execution, that kind of stinks, April 1537. Once the monasteries in the north gave great help to poor men and laudable service to God. Now no hospitality is shown to travelers. Instead, farmers rent out farms and taverns for profit. Any moneys earned from abbey lands are now going to the king. Also, many tenants who are fed and aided by abbeys now can barely live. Traveling strangers and beggars have no help on the roads. Seawalls, dikes, bridges, and high walls that were once maintained by the monasteries for the good of the Commonwealth are now left untended. Is he saying that the Catholic monasteries that existed prior to Henry divorcing England from the Catholic Church, is he saying that the monasteries, the Catholic monasteries, served a very useful purpose in the life of the people of England? Do they have more than a religious purpose? Is there anything, do we trust him? Do we not trust him, more or less, because he's giving this testimony before his execution? Does he know he's going to be executed? Does that affect, how exaggerated or not exaggerated his testimony is? That's something you have to judge for yourself and judge it to fit in with the other documents you are going to use. Okay, we're almost done, but I want to remind you of what I've already reminded you of several times, the rules while you're writing. Number one, most important of all things is your introduction. You need to have a specific historical context for the time period, okay, being discussed. And in this case, it's the Pilgrimage of Grace, it's the 1530s, it's England under Henry VIII and the English Reformation. And you need to set the stage in several sentences. And the introduction needs to end with your 3 separate specific thesis statements. Every idea you have to answer that question needs its own sentence so that you can fully develop your idea. Okay, next, when you're writing your 3 body paragraphs, each body paragraph better have a very clear topic sentence that reflects your thesis for each paragraph. Okay, number 3, there better be full attribution on all documents, including their dates. And as you put your documents together under each of your topics as you're planning, all right, make sure that you've organized your documents in chronological order. Number 4, you're going to strive for 5 examples of point of view. The minimum required is 3. But we're always going to strive for 5 to get the extra points, or at least to make sure that we hit the minimum of 3. Point of view, remember, is. You can start with tone, which is what do you think, the attitude of the author is. Is he happy, mad, sad, glad, etc.? But the point of view is, why is he saying what he's saying? Why is he angry? And the clues for the why come into where he is, what his profession is, what the time period is, all those different things, what the name of his book or pamphlet is. All right, all of those things give indications as to the motivation of the author. We're going to try our best to put the document numbers in the margins next to where we use documents. And finally, absolutely no quoting. We know you can read, and you need to put it in your own words. Finally, the only thing you're allowed to use in class when you write this essay in the 40 minutes you're allowed is your document packet with all your notes to yourself on it and the outline sheet I gave you, where you're going to have your historical context and thesis statements already written out, and your outline of the specific groups that you've chosen and your document numbers underneath. Don't try and sneak on there, pieces of the essay already written. The only parts of the essay that can already be written is your introduction, which includes your historical context and your thesis statements. And with that part done, there's no reason why you can't finish this DBQ in 40 minutes. All right? Good luck. You can always ask me before school to look at what you've chosen, but I think I've given you enough clues at this point to put together your own analysis. All right, good luck.